Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you to all of you for coming here. There's no festival without participants. So you have made the festival. Thank you for all your kind offerings to me. And I pray at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and all the previous acharyas, especially Sri Madhvacharya, in this place of Madhvacharya, Udupi. And actually so many, after Madhvacharya, many great personalities also were stationed at this place, acharyas in his sampradaya. That means our sampradaya. Madhva, we're the Gauriya branch, Brahma Madhva, Gauriya Vaishnav sampradaya. So I pray for the mercy of all the acharyas and the mercy of all the Vaishnavas that I can live up to your expectations. Yeah, I was saying a festival is no festival without participants. A king is no king without his subjects, and a guru is no guru without disciples. Someone was, actually the Swami was the Sri Sugunendra Tirtha Swami was mentioning about Krishna, that just as Krishna means he who attracts, so Krishna is also attracted by his devotees, and just as you like me, I like all of you. So, actually I'm seeing that I've said this before, and sometimes devotees doubt if it could be possible, but I actually see in many of my disciples excellent qualities which I find lacking in myself, or they're more apparent in some of my disciples. And you think, well, how is that possible? Well, if it's not possible, then the parampara would always be in decline. Think about it. So just as you have kindly said so many nice things about me yesterday, I'd like to speak about or mention the names of some of my disciples and briefly mention some of their qualities and their services. Especially their services. It's all right to have good qualities, that's all right, but just having good qualities in and of itself doesn't really mean very much. One has to perform service. We're not trying to be just sadhus, just be nice to others. Smile, hold a flower, and do nothing. This is not the kind of disciple that Srila Prabhupada wanted. As Srila Prabhupada once said, we don't want Babaji class. Srila Prabhupada wanted to see his disciples performing substantial service in the Sankirtan movement. Srila Prabhupada said, we don't want Babaji class. So I said, well, we have Babajis in our sampradaya too. Who is Gaur Kishore? Das, Babaji. Who is Jagannath Das? Babaji. They were Babajis. You can also be a Babaji. Srila Prabhupada initiated one Babaji, but then you have to be on that level if you can do it. Otherwise, better to take sannyas. If you're going to renounce, sannyas is meant for preaching. Everyone is meant for sannyas. What is that first verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Anyone? We have so many big scholars here. Anashrita karma palam karyang karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. One who doesn't take shelter of the fruits of activities, but performs work as he is meant to do. That person, Lord Krishna says, is a sannyasi and a yogi, not one who renounces fire. That means a traditional sannyasi does it. The householders, they would have fire in their homes. Fire. Brahmanas, fire is required for cooking and for yajna. But a sannyasi, one who accepts karma sannyas, he no longer cooks or performs yajna, so he has no touch with fire. Nani ragnir na chakriya, he has no activities to perform either. Not activities meant for artha and kama. He's renounced from that. So, real sannyasi, everyone is meant to be a sannyasi. Everyone is supposed to perform activities in the Sankirtan movement. So I'm going to mention some names of some of my disciples who are performing particularly substantial service. I'm not going to mention all my disciples. I'm only going to mention also those who are present here. There are some who are performing very substantial service who are not here, so I'm just going to mention the names of some of those who are here. Don't be upset if your name's not mentioned. We shouldn't be envious and think, why am I not mentioned? We find that in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, we can't, in mentioning the names of the principal branches or the principal followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I can't ascertain who is higher or lower. But he also said, well, there are many whose names I haven't mentioned because he has innumerable devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they're all great persons. But then sometimes he'll also say about one Boro Shaka, he's a major branch. That would usually mean that they had disciples or they performed service which even among the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exceptional. For instance, who has heard the name of, or who remembers the name Jagannath Tirtha? Anyone? Well, he's mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita as one of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there are many like that. Harai Ojha, then in the list, but there's nothing else mentioned about them. Whereas Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, so much is mentioned about them. So they're all great because they're all devotees, but still some have performed activities which distinguish them. So all devotees are everyone who chants the name of Krishna even once, especially with even an iota of sincerity. Such a person is certainly much greater than any performer of acts which are considered great by people who are great frogs jumping around in the well of material life. There are many great frogs in history, and there will be many more. Krishna doesn't care for Charles de Gaulle or Hitler or Churchill, all great heroes of the modern European history. Who's here from India? Who's heard the name of Charles de Gaulle? If you go to France and you never heard of him, they'll kill you probably, because they consider him, after Napoleon, the greatest beefeater or normal Frenchman that was ever born in France. But you've never heard of him, and it doesn't matter if you never heard of him. In fact, it's probably better if you didn't, but I'm just giving an example of one who is considered great, but so many great people come and go, and many more less great people come and go in the waves of time. But anyone who chants Hare Krishna is glorious. Anyway, I'm going to mention some of the disciples of mine who are performing outstanding service. Outstanding service, there are so many services to perform, but especially this movement is meant for spreading the Sankirtan movement, preaching Krishna consciousness, and all the services are meant for that. Still, some are taking a lead and doing that very well. So I'm not going to mention names in any particular order, except that there's two I'm going to say first. Two of my disciples who are present here who are clearly performing outstanding service in this area, South India. That is, of course, for those of you who are here, you must know Gokul Chandra Prabhu, who I don't see here. But anyway, everyone knows who he is, and if you don't know who he is, just look for, just when everyone's standing up, look up, and you'll see the tallest, or the head standing above all others. Yeah, he can stand up for those. I think mostly they all know him. And the Kinchan Krishna Prabhu, who both went to towns in Tamil Nadu where there was either there'd been very little preaching by ISKCON previously, or in the case of Salem, they'd been preaching, but you might wish that they hadn't been preaching, because there was such a bad opinion that it made preaching more difficult. Sometimes, in the name of preaching, it leaves behind such a bad reputation that anyone who seriously wants to go there and preach and not just drain people of their money as far as possible, then people get to know that you're doing that, and then the bad reputation comes. So it became more difficult in Salem, but both of them are steadily performing very sincere service and gathering devotees to assist in the preaching in those areas, training devotees, and Gokul Chandra Prabhu has got a plot of land and plans to build a temple there. Kinchan Krishna Prabhu is not at that stage. He's been less years in Vellore. He was previously elsewhere, but was unceremoniously uprooted from the place in which he was preaching previously. But he's also preaching very widely in all the, not all, but many of the towns around there, and also in Sri Lanka. How many devotees are here from Sri Lanka? Sri Damodar Prabhu is heading them up. I only see 200. How many came? 5 came, yeah. So he's also going there regularly, and assisting with preaching there. And both of these devotees also, they are preaching leaders. What does it mean to be a leader? Just to boss everyone around? No, a leader in Krishna consciousness is one who brings others up and brings out the potential in others. So they're both doing that also. They're bringing people into Krishna consciousness and bringing them up and giving them responsibility for preaching so that others can also develop qualities in Krishna consciousness. One of my earliest disciples, senior in that respect and senior in terms of years also, in terms of physical age, and senior in terms of Vaishnava qualities, is Rupa Goswami Prabhu from Baroda. He's now retired from his family life, and even though at his age it must be quite difficult to travel, he has come all the way here, and he does travel here and there also, but most of apart from attending the temple programs in Baroda, early morning and often in the evening, he's there in the temple, but he's also translating my books into Gujarati, and he's also translated some of Srila Prabhupada's books into Gujarati. They're mostly all translated already. He's also editing Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which has been published in Gujarati but is now being revised. It was a rough job, the first translation. So he's editing that. So he's doing a lot of service in writing, and that's one thing, is Yata Guru Tata Shishya. It seems that several of my disciples are writing also, that Bhagavad Darshan in Gujarati, several. It's mostly my disciples who are writing for it. It's not that anyone else is banned from doing that, but they've taken up the initiative to do so. Gokul Chandra Prabhu has also written one book or two. He's written one book, it's been in Trishankhu position for years. It's like written, but it's not published. It's just hanging in the air. So that's a good thing, to get it published by next year, at least. What about this year? We got 361 days left to do it, and so see if you can get that published. Books for preaching. Keshavananda, he's not here. He's written a whole bunch of books also. Others also. Gadadhar and Pandit Prabhu in Russia. Madhav Prabhu is greatly from Vallabh He's greatly assisting myself in my preaching, just like I'm speaking to all of you here now. And I feel I have something important to say. That's why I go on speaking, shamelessly. Vaishnava is supposed to be humble, but how is it humble to speak, to sit above people and speak? Well, we have an important message from our acharyas who have told us to speak that to others. So sometimes I speak to, here's a gathering of 100 plus people. Sometimes I speak to gatherings of 1,000 plus people. Sometimes I speak to gatherings of less than 10 people. Sometimes I speak with one person. And for the last few years, what I'm speaking is mostly recorded. And what's good for one is good for everyone on the absolute platform. Krishna consciousness, the message of Bhagavad Gita presented according to various contemporary circumstances. That's good for everyone. So Madhav Prabhu has taken charge of, it's actually his idea to do that. collecting and editing all those lectures and getting them distributed. And he's also making, what's it called? E-books for the BBT, audio books for the BBT, Srila Prabhupada's books. So far it's been done, you've done some books in Hindi. 4 books in Hindi. And then there's the Bhagavad Gita, working with Kamalesh in California. He's been instrumental in recording and distributing actually many thousands of CDs of the Bhagavad Gita recited. And even came in the local newspaper that sitting in Anand is someone who's making CDs in English, Hindi, Gujarati, Arabic. That particularly caught their attention, and distributing them all over the world. Ramgiridhari Prabhu is looking after my books. I mean, it's the book go down and distribution. So that's also important for me, because somehow I'm getting this inspiration that I have to write books. So they also need looking, those that get printed, they need looking after and distributing. He's doing that. Recently, I formed a trust for the purpose of, mainly for the purpose of printing and distributing those books. Aravindaksh Prabhu, he's overseeing that trust. I have to trust him because there's a lot of money in it. Of course, it's not as much money as he sees. Comes from a well-to-do business family. There's one incident, I've told this several times, that a few years ago, we were all going to, many devotees from Gujarat were going to Vrindavan at that time, during Kartik. And I asked him if he was also going during the Diwali holidays. So with a look of great disappointment on his face, he said, "No, I can't go. My family wants to go on a holiday, so I have to take them to Singapore." Now, most Indians, they'd be so delighted to have the opportunity to go to Singapore, but he was, I have to go to Singapore. I want to go to Vrindavan. So, previously looking after the book stock, but now very enthusiastically distributing. Previously looking after my book stock, but now very enthusiastically distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in Surat, is Radhesh Prabhu, and inspiring others to do that. Himself and his wife, Sham Sukada Devi Dasi, they're incarnations of enthusiasm. At the time of initiation, he asked me, is there any adesh, any order? So my adesh for Radhesh Prabhu was to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. He's taken that up very seriously. In Surat, when devotees ask me, is there any adesh? I tell them, adesh Radhesh, ask him. He'll get you out there distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and he's really got life from doing that, spiritual life. Sometimes some disciples come to me and they say, I got a plot of land, I'm going to build a house, or I got a visa for Canada, and they're looking so happy. I'm looking at them, you got a visa for Canada? Yeah, really? I'm supposed to be happy about that? But with Radhesh Prabhu, I don't even know how he makes a living. I don't know what he's doing. He used to have some kind of business and he's doing something else now. I have no idea. He never talks to me about anything else except his book distribution and other services. So that's what I know. How he makes a living, no idea. Somehow his family life is, his income is there, but I mostly see him in the not how he gets maintenance for his family, but how he's giving out, preaching. Just now leading the Guru Puja Kirtan was Chitta Hari Prabhu. We had a long struggle for many years, and he was right in the center of it. I was just at the edge of it, to extract him from his promising career. I mean, it wasn't that he was struggling to stay in it, he was also struggling to get out of it. He was being sent here and there to different places in the world, but all he wanted to do was quit his so-called good job and serve Krishna full time. So he's been doing that for the last few years, and I'm very happy that he's really flourishing. Some people, they come out of their material situation just because, well, mainly because they're fed up with it. They just want relief, but he's not just taking relief from the pangs of material life, but he's performing substantial service as we could say number 2 there in Salem to Gokul Chandra Prabhu, and recently during the December marathon of Srila Prabhupada, distributing phenomenal quantities of Srila Prabhupada's books. Sri Giridhari Prabhu, who's up there translating in Tamil probably. I don't know who's doing this. Yeah, he's, apart from translating for me in Tamil, he's also helping me very much in the production of my books. This book, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav, I've given him a lot of trouble. There's still more trouble to come before it gets printed, because I have this strange method. Anyone who knows anything about book production will know that this is not supposed to be done. We go on editing after it's laid out. So it gives him a lot of trouble because he's overseeing the layout and other things also. But actually I want to get all this finished as soon as possible, because I've many books to produce, but his main service that I put him onto is the editing of all of Srila Prabhupada's books in Tamil last year. Well, if we speak of Gaurabdha, it's still this year. Just a few months ago he finished totally re-editing Bhagavad Gita Unnamai Uravil, Bhagavad Gita as it is in Tamil. And so he's got a lifetime engagement there, plenty of books to do. Very steadily performing service for several years there in Salem. He's full-time in the temple is Krishnadas Prabhu, and also now helping to oversee the preaching in Namakkal, which is a place about an hour's drive from Salem, where there's an ancient temple of Narasimhadev, and Varadaraj Prabhu is also there in Namakkal. So this expanding the preaching, we want to see this. Srila Prabhupada always wanted to see that. Vasudev Datta Prabhu was previously in Tamil Nadu, and he's just come to return. I told him to learn Tamil and preach. He was for several years heading up book distribution, or he got it going again, book distribution in his native country, Slovenia, and now he's come back to India to preach here. So he's done very well all these years, and we expect him now that he's come here to do very well also. And thank you to all the devotees born in Western bodies who are staying on in India and preaching here. In 1971, Srila Prabhupada planned to propose to the then Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, to grant immigration status to 500 Western devotees. And that time, the movement wasn't so big. That would have been like a huge hunk of a major number of devotees from the Western world. Srila Prabhupada was prepared to bring them to India for preaching. And Srila Prabhupada brought so many, and mostly they came and went. Even we heard stories of someone landed at the airport, took a taxi into Calcutta, turned around and went back and got on the plane and went back to where he came from. Just seeing it was enough for him to be discouraged. I remember actually many years ago, Basu Ghosh Prabhu was saying to me, you probably don't remember this, I'd been in India for about a year or 18 months at that time, and said, oh, now you're established, now you're as an India devotee, because there weren't that many who came to stay, who stayed even for a year. They'd just run away. A few bouts of diarrhea and mosquito bites, and they'd be back to the land of butter. You didn't get that. You didn't even get milk in India. Maybe occasionally buffalo milk. That's what it was like. There are many austerities, actually much more austere in those days. But I'm trying to bring some Western devotees to India for preaching. It's good for them. It's good for those who come to get that cultural exposure. And it's good for preaching too, because the dancing white elephants are still attractive to Indian people who feel inspired to take up Krishna consciousness when they see that Westerners are doing so. Somehow or other, the people of India hold Westerners in high regard. So thank you to all the devotees from the Western world who are staying on despite the various difficulties. I said I'm going to mention the ones who are here now. Otherwise it'll go on and on. So one devotee who came from the West and has now learned 2 Indian languages, equaling me. I only know 2 Indian languages. Is Nityanand Prabhu. One language he knows is Tamil, and the other he knows is Sanskrit, which I didn't learn either of those languages. So he's doing very well there, and others can also follow in his footsteps as far as they can. Different people have different gifts. He's quite gifted in various areas, so whatever gifts we have, we should use them in Krishna's service. One of his gifts is, he's at that, with Gopi Puranadana Prabhu in Govardhan. He may be shifting soon to Mayapur, but I'm hoping to, as appropriate for the various devotees' abilities and their what shall I say, their readiness, I may hope to send more disciples to Gopi Pranadana Prabhu to study not just Sanskrit, but to be introduced through the Sanskrit language to the literature of our acharyas, with the aim of transmitting that to others. So preaching means going out into the world, meeting people, giving them Srila Prabhupada's books, giving them Krishna Prasadam, inducing them to chant the holy names of Krishna. But going deeply into the teachings of our acharyas and presenting them for posterity. That's in itself preaching, and it gives an even more solid basis to our preaching. Srila Prabhupada produced so many books. He sometimes criticized his godbrothers for not producing books. He said after our Guru Maharaj, they hardly produced any books. He wanted his disciples to produce books. So books should be that. As Srila Prabhupada said, all the Vedic literature, especially the Vaishnava literature, all of the work should be translated in English and distributed all over the world. So doing so in a realized way, following the example of Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu, is a very important service. Many of these books are already translated and distributed by Max Muller and other demons. And recently, this Rasbihari, these are a mixed blessing at best, you could say. These Max Muller's and company, they're envious translations, and Rasbihari Lal for profit motive. So whether it's translated properly or not, what the hell does it matter? There's more rupees in my pocket. So I say at best it's a mixed blessing. Translators, they should be realized, faithful, and take the trouble to do a job properly. So that's an important service. Narayan Pandit is another disciple from the West who spent many years in India and is distributing many books. I'll be happy to see him do that throughout the rest of his life. He doesn't seem to have any other thought but to do that. He's taken the responsibility of doing that. I have many, or not many, but quite a few disciples in Russia, whom, as I was saying yesterday, most of my disciples in other parts of the world don't know them or anything much about them. Russia's a very special place for Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada went there in the time of the grossly atheistic government and predicted that Russians would become first-class theists, which some of them have. You went there also, right? Once briefly. Have you ever been there? You went to Russia? No? You'll like it there. The devotees are very sweet. They're just... We go to Poland, yeah. But if you say in Poland that we like Russia, they'll chase you out. They have some bad memories, going back hundreds of years. It's only a matter of time before the same thing happens. So, there's Gunadham Prabhu, who spoke yesterday, and you wouldn't know he was Russian the way he was speaking, because he speaks fluent English. One thing that drives me nuts in India after all these years is this Indian English. I spend all my life fighting the tendency to speak in Indian English. In fact, recently my voice was very weak, so I had someone else read out the purport in the Bhagavatam before I gave class. They were reading, I said, hey, let me look at that. And they'd left out the word the, as people in India often do, and it just changed the meaning altogether. So they, even if they're reading it, they can't see it, because they're so used to speaking wrong English. So if you are learning English, as many devotees do after joining ISKCON, please take the trouble to learn how to speak it properly. Anything we do in Krishna's service, we should do properly. So, yeah, there are people in India who speak excellent English, but mostly our devotees in India who learn English through ISKCON, they just pick it up and they just speak it as if they're speaking Hindi or Tamil or something, and they try to impose the grammar they know on English. But then what you find is that people who are well educated, and there are plenty of them, you want to speak English, but then they immediately understand that you picked it up in ISKCON, or that you're not properly educated. So the whole idea is to preach among the educated class, so-called. So take the try. I mean, I try to take the try to speak the two languages I've learned in India well, and I'm always trying to learn more. So please do that. Gunadham Prabhu, I say, he's trained in translation. He's translated all my books except one into Russian. The one is The Message to the Youth of India, which is no use to translate that into Russian. And got them printed and distributed. And when I'm in Russia, he's my mother, father, uncle and everything, because he's serving me and translating for me and keeps track of all my disciples here and there, and so many things he's doing. I don't know if he's here or not. So there are quite a few devotees from Russia. So, no, not that many. There's a few in Salem and more coming. So, thank you all for staying. Sanatana Goswami comes and goes, and the latest we heard he's going to be... Comes and goes means he's traveling and preaching all the time, but the last thing he told me, he's been asked to oversee a farm community in Russia, so that will be a very great service if he can do that. Shubhangi Radha Mataji was in Baroda years ago before the temple was opened, and there were very few devotees coming at that time. There were very few people coming. Once the temple, from the day it opened, it was a major difference. Building temples is good preaching. So she was coming in those days when hardly anyone was coming. And then she moved back to her native Maharashtra and is overseeing or underseeing, we can say. She's not dominating, but she's helping. There's a whole community. As a doctor, she had a clinic in one area, and then so many people in that area became devotees, and many of them are picking up Krishna consciousness very nicely. I just got a letter from Radhe Sham Prabhu in Pune, who's the temple president there, and I was just asking him if it's okay to go on such and such a date there. And he wrote back, although it has nothing to do with the subject, that Lakshman Pran Prabhu and his wife Sumitra Sundari are doing very nice preaching, and they're setting an exemplary standard for devotees. Avinash Govind Prabhu was traveling with me for a short time a few years ago, and he's also a very enthusiastic devotee there in Pune. I try to have some contact with my disciples, even regular contact, even though I can't physically be close to everyone all the time. Srila Prabhupada wrote one letter to a disciple saying that, well, I'd like to be with all my disciples all the time, but because we all have preaching engagements in different parts of the world, that is not possible. But in the modern age, we can have regular contact, at least by email. So I regularly send out, actually I forgot to do so this morning, a quote from Srila Prabhupada. Mostly I send it every day, a quote from Srila Prabhupada, and that goes to all of my disciples who have the facility to and care to get texts from the BVKS Sangha, which Gaur Bhagavan Prabhu is overseeing. He's also my computer doctor. Every time I see him, I have something for him to do on the computer, because if you have a computer, you have problems. If you have a Mac, you have less. You could always get a job as a Mac representative. They can, yeah, but you know what? I don't want to bother learning it. That's all right. Okay, we'll reserve this conversation for later. Okay. Some devotees are here from Dubai, where I've been going for many years. And at the time I was going, actually there were no ISKCON sannyasis going. But now, practically all the year round, there's ISKCON sannyasis going, because they're a very sweet bunch of devotees. It's on the route between most of the rest of the world and India. And they also give some donations, which is, I guess, it's another reason why people go now. So Mahamani Krishna Prabhu was, at that time I was staying in his house. That was ISKCON in Dubai. There's his little apartment there. And it's now, by his preaching, expanded. His two sons were unmarried at that time, and they're both well settled now. And his eldest son, Sri Vallabh Prabhu, is very, in an extraordinarily exemplary manner, heading up the preaching there in Dubai. And his younger brother, Nanda Kumar Prabhu, who's present here, has been central in this festival organization, and also led up some good kirtans. Quite a few of my disciples are good kirtan leaders. I used to lead kirtans quite a lot, but these days I hardly do due to voice problems. But several of my disciples are gifted in that manner. Nanda Kumar is one, Nityananda Prabhu, Krishna Kirtan, Chitta Hari, and others. These are the best known of the kirtan leaders. So he is. I gave a lecture once in Dubai, public lecture, the main Friday program. That means there's 600, 700, 800 devotees present. They're all householder devotees. I was saying that you can't go on with this, or You can think of an alternative to this highly materialistic way of living, which is not conducive to Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada gave the alternative: live simply on the land, grow your own food, chant Hare Krishna. Then you don't have to associate with non-devotees at all, or only for preaching. This artificial way of life, how long can it go on for? So Nanda Kumar Prabhu got inspired by that, and that was, when did I give that lecture? About 3-4 years ago, and is he there? I can't remember exactly. Anyway, he's carefully making the plans to actually do that. Move with his family from his comfortable, highly paid job in Dubai, and he's going to get mud all over him and work on the land. He's, I say, carefully doing that, just like when you're walking, you lift up your foot and put it down. But you lift up one foot, and then you put it down, then you only lift up the other one when the first one is well settled. So he's carefully making plans to transfer his family and activity, his life, to living on the land in rural India and pursuing Srila Prabhupada's direction for living simply on the land. Not just living simply on the land. There are millions of people all over the world living simply on the land. That in and of itself is not our purpose. But for the sake of practicing Krishna consciousness, showing how people can live simply and practice Krishna consciousness. Also here from Dubai is Sundar Gauranga Prabhu, who's also in the process of quitting life in Dubai and going to his native place in Goa. And whenever he goes there, he preaches Krishna consciousness, and quite a few people by his inspiration are taking it up more and more. So we're looking forward to when he finally extracts himself from life in Dubai and can do a lot of preaching there in Goa. Lalit Krishna Prabhu is also here from Dubai. He's also inspired to write, as he was saying yesterday. One of the main organizers of this festival and of several of the yatras we've been doing recently in South India, taking devotees to different holy places, is Hari Krishna Prabhu, who is also looking after many of my disciples in the Hyderabad, Secunderabad area. In that area also is Madhav Gopinath Prabhu, who, as we heard yesterday, was instrumental in bringing out the Ramayana in Telugu, the book that I produced. So that's a very big service, because definitely that's going to be, already has started to be a very popular book. And Telugu is actually one of the world's major languages. Probably after Hindi and Bengali, it's maybe the number 3 language in terms of Hindustani and Bengali. It's probably number 3 in terms of numbers of people speaking it. And that puts it among the world's major languages. It's 80 million people or something, 80, 90 million. So there's a very, very big field. There's Telugu people are very pious and very much inclined to Krishna consciousness. I mean, not all of them are pious. I mean, there are chief ministers and this and that who are not so pious. But it's a very good field, so we're looking forward to more books in Telugu. Then there are quite a few devotees here who are neither God's siblings nor disciples, or aspiring disciples or visitors. I said they're disciples of God brothers, and we always want to promote among the devotees that we really want to live together in Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON society as one family, and who we're initiated by should not be our major identification, that we're all members of Srila Prabhupada's family. That is our identity as members of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. So it's not that, of course we're gathered here as a group of mostly my disciples, but we don't want to make any discrimination on that basis. We're all here together. All the disciples of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's disciples and future generations will be there. We're all here to cooperatively serve Srila Prabhupada's mission and to offer all respect to all those devotees who are propagating Srila Prabhupada's mission. And definitely there is a difference, there is some kind of difference between the various devotees who are accepting the service of accepting disciples within our movement. There are so many great persons who are doing that, and they all have their own personalities and different emphasis in Krishna consciousness and different outlook and attitudes, and that will be reflected in the disciples. So there are differences, no doubt, between those who are acting as gurus in Srila Prabhupada's shelter and those who are disciples of different gurus. But the different flavors, that should not be a matter of contention, but rather those who know the science, they know how to take together different foods, and it increases the nutrition and the enjoyment. So we welcome all the devotees here, disciples of various initiating gurus within ISKCON. Yesterday, Divya Prabandha Prabhu spoke. He's been associated with me in various ways for many years. Panchatattva Seva Prabhu I saw yesterday after a few months. He was my father, mother, uncle and sister for a few months last year, traveling around the world. So I was very happy to see him back. He would every day he would do all his services and then go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books wherever he was. We were like one day in one country, the next day in another country. He'd get some books and go out and distribute them. Very dedicated to book distribution. So when I left America, he stayed and did the book distribution marathon there and arrived back. Matsya Avatar Prabhu, I've not known him for very long, but I think we're going to be getting to know each other more and more. He's kindly taken charge of one of my oldest disciples, Giridhari Priya Mataji. So I'm known for my book Brahmacharya and Krishna Consciousness, and I'm happy to see those who are seriously taking up Brahmacharya, but we're also very happy to see ideal grihastas in Krishna consciousness. I haven't mentioned the names of many of my lady disciples. Mostly they take a subdued role, but that is not in any way blameworthy. You need not think that because you are, I'm speaking here to the ladies, if you are performing your family duties, serving your husbands, looking after your children, practicing Krishna consciousness, that is the first and best service you can do. And other things may be done, but to do this in itself is very important service. Because we want to show the world how most people in the world are going to be married, either male or female. All females, all ladies should be married, all girls. So, in this modern age when people, they can't even live as husband and wife together peacefully. It's rare, it seems. So if our devotees can do that, just live happily and peacefully in family life, be Krishna conscious, that in itself is a service. And looking after children in Krishna consciousness, that is the most important service that women can do. It's not that the children should be in any way neglected. The women have 24 hours service with their children, but bringing them up and making them devotees as the first guru, that is a glorious service. So please don't think you're neglected. I may not interact with my lady disciples so much, but I see you and I know what you're doing. So please be assured that the greatest appreciation for the ladies who are performing their Stri Dharma in an ideal manner along with their Bhakti Dharma. Thank you especially to all my mothers who are cooking so nicely for me in various places. Although I know I disappoint you because I don't eat very opulent preparations. But you're cooking for me, that's appreciated because we all have to take prasadam. Yeah, among the, I was mentioning some of the devotees whose disciples of other gurus who are here. Sevakapati Prabhu is from Chennai. He's been organizing programs for me regularly in Chennai, and he was also at one time going regularly to Avadi, where one area of Chennai where there's an enthusiastic group of devotees there. There's quite a big group from Avadi here, is it? How many? About 30 devotees? 45. So things are expanding over there. From Salem also, there are quite a few. People think that's Bhakti Vikasa Swami Center, but there are disciples of various gurus there also, and they're all welcome. Balaram Govinda from Madurai came. I've also known him for many years, and he's also looking after some of my disciples down there in Madurai. One I didn't mention yet is Guru Das Prabhu, who among his many good qualities, most amazing thing, he tolerates me. Because I'm not very nice actually. I try to make a show of it, but I'm actually not very nice, and he gets bashed morning till night by verbal bashings from myself, and he tolerates it day after day, year after year. So apart from cooking for me, serving, getting my cloth washed, cleaning the room, his old sadhana is thrown out every day. The greatest thing he's doing is tolerating me, so thank you very much for that. I didn't mention those who are making donations. You're all making donations. Some of you are making significant donations, monetary donations. You all know who you are. I'm not going to mention them. It's donating Lakshmi for the service of Narayan. It's better kept private. Otherwise, it's the tendency to become fruitive, to develop a fruitive mentality may be there. So, even when I take donations, I don't jump up and down and say a lot of thank yous. I just take them, but it is appreciated. I know that it's a sacrifice. Everyone wants money. Money is sweeter than honey, as Srila Prabhupada used to quote. So to have the faith in me that I will offer this to Narayana and not try to enjoy it separately like Ravana, that's also very much appreciated. So again, if I haven't mentioned your name, please don't be sorry. All are appreciated. Of course, some disciples, they act in a way also that may be disappointing. We always hope for the best for all disciples, that they will perform Krishna consciousness in an exemplary manner. But inevitably, as Srila Prabhupada writes, that even on the royal road, there can be accidents. So on this royal road going to Krishna, some slip, fall, some put roadblocks and try to block others also. So, of course, as the saying goes, every saint has a past. I don't want to speak very much about my past. I'm supposed to be some kind of a saint, but devotees often ask me about my past before I came to Krishna consciousness, but I really don't like to talk about it very much because it's not very saintly, to say the least. And every sinner has a future. So all those who stumbled, please get up, go on. And there's always a future in Krishna consciousness. However much we may struggle, however many mistakes we've made, Krishna is always ready to accept us if we sincerely apply ourselves to His service. So, please be careful, don't disappoint me, and I pray at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada that I may not disappoint you. Hare Krishna. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much to all the devotees for all your services, and we look forward to more and more in future.